I rise because this week is extremely important, not just here in the Commonwealth, but all across the country, as we lift up and seek to better the lives of victims of abuse in all types of circumstances. It is National Crime Victims Week, and here in Pennsylvania, it is Crime Victim Rights Week as well. And the theme for the week is honoring our past and creating hope for the future. I want to look ahead as to how we, as a body, can best help victims across our Commonwealth. Many important pieces of legislation are moving this week on both sides of this building, and that creates hope. Madam President, as the prime sponsor of the Buyer Beware Act, it is important that we look at our past to help victims today, tomorrow, and in the future. We saw in Jupiter, Florida, a massive prostitution ring that was uncovered. In the past, we would have looked at the women who performed these sex acts as prostitutes and criminals, and the alleged customers would have received a slap on the wrist. The old headline would have shown the women as the headline and as criminals, and those who bought them would remain anonymous. Instead, we're now talking about the horrific lifestyle that's imposed upon these human beings that have been forced into trafficking by others. The individuals who allegedly solicited the services of these victims were on the front page of major newspapers all across the country. The tide is certainly turning, but we need to do more to remove victims from these conditions. Madam President, I'm extremely grateful for the support and assistance of so many advocates outside of this building, as well as the 25 bipartisan co-sponsors of this legislation from this chamber. Madam President, Senate Bill 60 is vital to ensure that we stop the demand of human trafficking here in the Commonwealth. As someone who lives along and represents a district that is bisected by the Interstate 83 corridor that connects Baltimore and Harrisburg, I've heard from law enforcement who have uncovered human trafficking all along this superhighway. The only way that we can fight human trafficking is to cut off the demand. It's basic economics. Senate Bill 60, it will increase penalties on those who traffic victims and those who knowingly solicit services of traffic victims. This legislation would double the penalties that an individual may receive for trafficking or patronizing a trafficked victim to a first-degree felony and a maximum penalty of 20 years. The fine levels also increase to a minimum of $1,000 and a maximum of $30,000. If the trafficked victim is a minor, the penalty is increased to anywhere between $5,000 and $100,000. Repeat offenders would also receive increased penalties. The goal of the Buyer Beware Act is to end the demand for human trafficking. Madam President, I'm extremely grateful for the hard work, assistance, and support of our state victim advocate, Jennifer Storm, along with Shay Rhodes of Villanova University's Law Institute that addresses commercial sexual exploitation. Both of these incredible women are leading the way for Pennsylvania to turn the tide. They have committed their lives to ending human trafficking in the Commonwealth, and we endeavor to help them reach that commitment. Senate Bill 60 would be the next step to ensure we shut off the demand for human trafficking. Senate Bill 60 would show that we stand with victims. It would say to those individuals who traffic victims or solicit the services of traffic victims, you will have to face the full weight of the law. No more slaps on the wrist. Human trafficking and the sex trade need to end. Thank you to all of the co-sponsors of Senate Bill 60 for understanding that there is nothing humane about human trafficking, and we must lead on this issue here in Pennsylvania, that we must stand for victims, that we must punish those who perpetuate this crime, not the victims, and that we provide every tool available to law enforcement to continue fighting the horrible modern-day slave trade that exists in communities all across this state. Senate Bill 60 looks to rectify the horrible injustices of the past that labeled those victims of human trafficking as prostitutes. They are victims, period. Those who patronize and solicit services from trafficked victims are criminals who feed a multi-billion-dollar underground industry. Senate Bill 60 provides hope for the future, that we can end sex slavery here in Pennsylvania, that we can end the demand for trafficked victims, and that we will not tolerate those who traffic victims or solicit their services. Thank you, Madam President.